This is One Sentence News, a daily podcast featuring 3 news stories with a sentence-long summary and 1 sentence of context apiece. I'm Colin Wright. This is a sponsored message. I've been using Anchor as my podcast host for a while now, and it's been a pleasure to use. Anchor offers benefits that most other hosts do not. It's free to use, but it also has a collection of tools that allow you to create a podcast completely within the Anchor website or smartphone app. They distribute your show to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and all the other distribution channels without any additional effort on your part, and you can make money from your podcast without any minimum audience size. So you can use it as a more traditional podcast host like I do, but it's also got everything you need to start a podcast from scratch. If you're keen to give it a shot, download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. It's Friday, August 5th, 2022. Let's talk about the news. From The Guardian, Bank of England hikes interest rates and warns UK to enter recession with inflation to pass 13%. The Bank of England has said that the UK's economy will shrink from the final quarter of 2022 through 2023. Its GDP will fall by 2.1%. And consumer price inflation will hit 13% per year following the lifting of an energy price cap later in October. Despite this announcement, which basically means the UK will experience a year-plus recession minimum, the bank raised interest rates by 0.5 point to 1.75%, marking the 6th consecutive rise and the latest move in a larger effort to reduce that aforementioned sky-high inflation rate sooner rather than later. The British pound lost about 0.33% of its value on the news. From the Associated Press, UN says nearly 12 million facing acute hunger in Sudan. The United Nations Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs has said that 11.7 million people in Sudan have faced acute hunger since June as a consequence of drought, a fragile local economy, and mismanagement of resources following a military coup last October. That military takeover slowed or stopped several efforts to get billions of dollars of international funds into Sudan's economy, and millions of those nearly 12 million facing acute hunger are in need of life-saving nutrition, at real threat of starving to death if something doesn't change soon. The World Food Program has said it had to cut rations for the region recently because it doesn't have the funding to buy as much food as usual, given the inflation across many economies right now. And the organization has warned that there will be many knock-on effects to not providing sufficient food to such places, including an increase in violence, reduced school attendance, and higher rates of child marriage and labor. And from the New York Times, Brittany Griner is sentenced to 9 years in a Russian penal colony. American women's basketball star Brittany Griner, who was detained by Russian authorities back in February after they found vape cartridges containing hashish oil in her luggage, has been sentenced to 9 years in prison. The Biden administration has been negotiating for her release and the release of another American civilian being held by the Russian government, both allegedly for geopolitical reasons, not for crimes that would typically be punished, or at the very least not at this scale. But the Russian government so far hasn't accepted, saying they want 2 Russian prisoners held by the U.S. in exchange for the 2 Americans. Russia has previously been accused of imprisoning foreigners under false pretenses for negotiation and political purposes, and this, alongside a larger alleged effort to imprison and torture hundreds of thousands of Ukrainian civilians, is being seen by most international analysts as one more instance of that tendency. If you're finding some value in One Sentence News, consider leaving a quick review wherever you get your podcasts and/or sharing the show with a friend. You can find out more about this show or subscribe to the email version at onesentencenews.com. And you can support this and other related projects, like the Let's Know Things and Brain Lenses podcasts, at understandery.com.